episode 404 for the week ending March 5th, 2023. My name is Eric Stromquist, and if you're looking for cutting-edge control news you can use, including sales and marketing, then you're in the right place. The name of this episode is Nothing Happens Until the Sale is Made. And we're going to do a deep dive into this topic with an industry expert who's going to teach us how to be successful in today's competitive HVAC and smart building controls market. But before we get into our guests, let's follow up on a couple of things from last week's show. If you saw the show, I was concerned about the fact that we as an industry have one of the greatest industries for anyone who wants to reduce the carbon footprint of buildings and make the planet more sustainable. In fact, we pay well, we train well, and we offer great opportunities for advancement. Sounds like a younger person's dream job to me, right? We're not attracting the younger generation the way other industries do. So my call to action last week was to create a mastermind group of industry professionals, see if we could understand how to up our cool game, if you will, and compete with Silicon Valley and other industries for this younger talent. I had a couple of the younger people responded right away, and I'm looking forward to getting more people that would like to be involved. I'm kind of thinking of maybe every couple of months, a mastermind group via Zoom. So if you'd like to be part of this, email me at controltrendshotline@gmail.com. And as part of trying to understand what kind of social media works for this group of tech-savvy younger people, I mentioned last week I would be opening a TikTok account, which I did. And as a teacher of mine used to say, anything worth doing is worth doing poorly, at least at first. So I got the poorly part down, but I learned a couple of things. I found out that there are tons of TikTok videos on how to do things like, for example, program a Honeywell thermostat. There were a bunch of them, and most of them had over 300,000 views. There were tons of how-to videos on all kind of mechanical stuff and technical things. And there were even some on smart buildings, not from our vendors, but just from concerned citizens. These all had 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 views. So these are not done by companies, like I said, but they're done by people that are interested in the products, which I found really fascinating. So one of the ideas might be to find someone with a huge TikTok following and pay them to be your brand ambassador. My guess is it would be cheaper, more effective than doing it yourself. And speaking of doing it yourself, I don't think I see my wife, Anna, who is younger and has a podcast and does a lot on TikTok, laugh so hard as when she saw my first TikTok video. I had to remember right off the bat the part about doing it poorly, at least at first. So I picked up my pride and asked her what I needed to do better. And Anna gave me some pretty good advice. The first piece being that you have to get their attention right off the bat. She said my intro was way too long. In other words, in the first 3 to 4 seconds, if you don't capture their attention right off the bat, they're going to go to the next video. You pretty much have to say, hey, if you have this problem, here's how you fix it. Actually, I think that's really good advice for all kinds of marketing and communication, getting their attention off the bat. We'll talk a lot more about that later. But here was a big one. You always hold your phone above your face to get a more flattering angle. Otherwise, your wife will look at you like mine did and go, my gosh, I didn't realize you were so old. The final thing was you got to get your tags right. You have to tag your videos in a way they can be found. Find other videos that are doing well, see what tags they're using in titles and use those. And his final suggestion was watch a lot of videos, study what works. It made a lot of sense. So it got me thinking a lot about sales this week. And to begin with, we're all in sales, whether we realize it or not. Sales is nothing but a process in which we ask for something we want. Everything is sales. And when you look at sales as a process, then like all processes, it can be improved on. And if you can improve your process, you can change and learn and adapt. If you don't, you'll get the same things. My guest this week is going to give us some great tips on how to improve our sales processes. To me, when it comes to salespeople, there are basically 2 types. There's hunters and farmers. And occasionally you get one that does both. For the most part, they're one or the other. A hunter goes out, they love finding business, they love the hunt, as the name implies. They're great cold callers, they're relentless, they're aggressive. Farmers, on the other hand, would rather get hit in the head with a 2x4 than have to go out and make cold calls. Farmers are great at growing a business once a relationship has been established. I think most of our sales rep in our industries, being more technical, are like farmers. Get them in an account. If they're good, they'll grow your account. Social media has taken on the role of hunters. So if you do the social media right, it's a lot less expensive than hiring a salesperson, and you can get huge bang for the buck if you got the right strategy. The problem is that very few people get it right. So whether you hire a hunter to go out and grow your business or spend money on social media, both strategies have the same big hurdle, which is access. People don't have time anymore. They don't have time to see you. They don't have time to look at your content. So no matter how good your hunter is, if they can't get in to see a potential customer, they're locked out. Just like you can create the greatest videos, podcasts, and content on the planet, but if no one sees it or knows where to find it, you're locked out. And that's where Control Trends can help. Control Trends has been posting content for over 15 years. We built a large, I say large compared to other sites in our industry, and loyal following. It's global. Being seen or heard on Control Trends gives you access. So think about it. Control Trends is open for business. Among other services, the site will be open for advertisement and sponsorships. I'm in the process of redesigning our website, working with some really good designers, and I want to optimize it for reputable companies that want to advertise, be they manufacturers, distributors, contractors, or consulting engineers. The new design should be ready in about 7 or 8 weeks, and I'm really pumped up about it. I think it's going to look really good. But in the meantime, as I mentioned on last week's show, Control Trends is offering an immediate opportunity to get access, and that's to run a commercial on this show. Our first sponsor is a leader and an innovator. When I tell you who it is, you're going to it makes sense he would do that. So before I bring my guest on, let's have a quick word from our first sponsor, Cochran Supply. Cochran Supply has been serving customers since 1965. In fact, I believe they might have been the first Honeywell distributor in the country. When I was just getting into business, I had the pleasure of meeting Don Cochran Sr. He's quite a gentleman, great individual, very knowledgeable. And since then, I've got to know and work with both Scott and Don Jr. And so when I think of Cochran Supply, I think of really good people who work hard, they're aggressive, they innovate. Cochran provides great products and services and training. They've got a great training site. And Cochran hosting its 2023 Controls Con in Detroit, Michigan, April 27th and 28th. Yeah, I've been to them in the past. I'm going to be to this year's show too. And I can tell you, if you're building automation controls and want to see what is next, you got to be there. So please offer our first commercial on the new Control Talk now. So if you'd like to sponsor a show, just click on the link in the show notes to get the details. And now for our guest.
Okay, I don't care how good a product you have. I don't care how great your customer support is. Until the sale is made, nothing happens. I got to tell you, I've been in sales my entire life. When I spot somebody that's good in sales, I'm going to bring them on the show and share them with the Control Trends community, because I think sales is maybe a dying art, at least the way people like my next guest do it, who to me is one of the consummate salespeople out there. My guest this week is Joe Chandler. I asked Joe what his title was. He looked at me and goes, "That's a stupid question. I'm in sales." Joe's with Brody Precision. Joe, thanks for coming to the show and taking a few minutes to speak with us.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me on.
Well, it's great to have you, brother. Walk me through your journey.
It's funny, I got in trouble growing up for selling candy at school. Would buy it at the convenience store and then come back in and sell it to the kids at my school. I graduated high school and I went right into electronic sales 2 weeks after I was graduated high school. From that point, outside of a stint at a deli, that was what I was doing. When I started at Brody, though, I actually started in the warehouse. Worked my way through from warehouse to delivery and counter and UPS, and eventually just was able to get out on the road.
Brother, you and I have that in common. Same sort of route for me, working in the warehouse in the summers and then working the counter and then getting out. I couldn't wait to get out on the road. And I think that's one of the things that probably was true for you too. When you first got on the road, what was that like for you?
So that actually was because I didn't know HVAC and I didn't know controls. My thing was to kind of show up, really in the cold calling world. I actually started with guys at the counter, and it would be, just engaging them before I was actually an official outside sales guy, but I got paid commission. It was just engaging people. And, the big thing with sales, I think, and that you can't teach that part of it, is like the curiosity, right? You can't teach enthusiasm. You can't teach curiosity, but people show up at the counter and you help them out, find out what else they do, and let them know you do stuff too. And that's where it goes. So who gets to make that decision at your company? And that, if you're doing that naturally before you're compensated, it's not a hard transition once you do get compensated to go, well, this isn't bad either. I would look for, reasons. A guy would order a part. Well, then I'd go deliver it instead of shipping it. And that gave me a reason to be in front of them. And
yes. Brilliant.
Those hustle points get you somewhere. I think people appreciate that. It's the touch that has kind of got lost in the sales over the last bunch of years.
I know when I got started, and probably when you did too, you could drop me in any town in America, and within 15 minutes, I would know where the hospital was, the local school board, the local university, and the manufacturing plants were. And back in those days, I could walk in any hospital around. I'd just go through the back door. I'd see a maintenance guy. First thing I just look to see what the thermostats on the wall. They had a Johnson thermostat. Somebody said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, I'm here to talk about the Johnson stuff." "Oh, you need to see so and so." And there you go.
That's a good move.
But if you did that now, they'd probably shoot you. So it's, getting access is really, really tough these days. But how do you get around that? Right now you've got a lot of access because you know a lot of people. You've been doing it for a while. But if you were just starting out now, how would you be getting access to clients?
We as a distributor, we are no end users at all. So
Gotcha.
It is all contractors. The fortunate part, I guess, with Brody at this point in 2023 is we're certainly a known entity within our marketplace. If you're doing specifically building automation, you know of us or you deal with us. But more of that, especially when you're young, is how do you get more out of the guys that are, using you only for that one piece where you can grow past that. And those value touch points are where I think sales guys can really, really show what they're worth. And I've got an inside sales guy, and everybody at Brody, every outside guy has their own inside guy. So when I'm on the road, which is a lot, or I'm just in these conversations with people, there's a guy back there that my customers, they can reach out to, they can get their quotes, get their licensing, do all those things. But he's a guy that I'm trying to mentor into getting into the outside role. Set up some meetings and let me go with you. You have been with me. I brought him in as the inside guy. And this isn't my customer, it's our customer, right? They rely on you as much as they rely on me, maybe more, because it's a day-to-day thing. You have seen me in front of people. I want you to take that lead role and let me hang back and just watch you do what you do. But you're not alone. You're not on an island where you're worried. What happens if I don't know? What happens if they ask me something that is beyond my ability to reconcile? Having a mentor within the industry is, I think there are ways to set guys up for success. And that would be one that I would say, if you could do it, you're a young guy, don't think like you're on your own. And I tell my contractors that, young salespeople that they hire, and I'll call them and say, bring me in. You don't have to do this by yourself. How do you structure a conversation in such a way that your customer sees what you're trying to get to and the value that you might bring? Oddly in sales, I have done 0 PowerPoints in 17 years. Never done one.
Death, right?
Never done one.
Yeah,
and
good for
people
you.
are like, how do you do that? And I said, because you're having conversations with people who want you to help them solve a problem. They don't want you to present to them. They want you to get to know them. When I leave AHR, as just happened, and obviously you were there, and you come back and when the customer's saying, well, what did you learn? Because I didn't get to go. It's great. That's why I'm walking around. I'm their advocate. I see this and I see that, and I go, I know you well enough. I know your business. I know how you go to market. And when I come to you with an idea, you know that I know that. So that idea must be worth something to you if I'm going to present it.
Joe, I want to repeat what you just said. I am your advocate. And I think if more sales reps adopted that philosophy. So I think when you can develop that sort of a relationship with a customer like you obviously do, it's a huge difference. And I think what I'm hearing in that too, Joe, is that's really probably the most important part of your job, right, is to become that advocate so they think of you as part of their team, not as some guy trying to sell them stuff.
I got a lot of Joe Chandlerisms that I push out there.
I want to hear them.
I tell them, first of all, your job as a sales, how do I help you win more work? Right? And that's something that you now hear the Brody people talk about. Our job is to help you win work. Our job is to not to sell you parts. Every interaction does not need to lead to a transaction. So many salespeople get caught up in this idea that we had a conversation. Hey, I helped you with that thing. Now where's my purchase order? Interactions will lead to transactions, just not every one of them needs to. So you've got to have that mindset of, I don't need to monetize every time I talk to somebody, because it's happened to me, right? Eric, it's happened to you when you get a call from whatever vendor is trying to make their quarterly numbers and they start calling you, and it's every week, and then it's every other day, and then it's and every day. At some point, if you know that that's the only reason why they're calling, you don't even want to take the call.
Right.
Why aren't you calling me when nothing is going on and you just want to talk and you want to figure out how my business is doing? How do I do things better? So those little things, if you can figure out how to not monetize it and realize that your hard work will pay off. It just doesn't have to pay off today.
Where it gets difficult, starting out, or they say, hey, Joe, we need you to go find 10 new customers. How would you do that? How would you go about approaching? Let's just say all of a sudden one of the vendors calls up and says, hey, Joe, this company over here is using your competitor. We want you to go in and win that account.
The good part is that we're building automation, right? So a widget's a widget. My widget probably does what yours does, or vice versa. So where we try to, in the Brody world, we differentiate ourselves is showing that, once again, we're not there just for this transaction, right? We're not there just to win this thing, but it's also showing differences of why you might want to look in a different direction, right? And I said, it has to work for both of us. If you're going to come to me as a vendor and say, you know what I have? I have a MSTP VAV controller. Well, I don't need that. Yeah. I've got those, and I got enough of them. So do you differentiate yourself on the hardware side? Do you differentiate yourself within the way you go to market? Do you solve a problem for me that I can't currently solve? That's what I want to know. And if that's the case, I want to be that same for my customers. It's, okay, you've got a place where you can buy stuff. So you had taught me this years ago, Eric, and I'll never forget when we sat at one of those conferences and sitting at a table, and you explained to me, you're like, when you go into a new customer and you say, who are you currently using? And they'll mention, it doesn't matter who. And you'll say, I've heard great things about them. Tell me what you like, right? And what the customer does at that point is tell you everything that matters to them. Whether or not you're trying to sell them something you think should matter, you listen for what does matter, because whatever that's going to come out of their mouth in their compliment of their current supplier is something that for whatever reason matters to them. And you check a box, right? That's what I start doing mentally. I say, all right, can I do this? Can I do this? Can I do this? Anything they could do better that, you think is, should be kind of what part of your business needs. And then they're going to name things that basically the other guy can't do.
I love it, dude. I just want to recap a little bit. So, what Joe's basically talking about, if somebody's using another brand, rookie mistake, but you see veterans make it all the time, right? So they go, we use brand X. You go, well, brand X, we're better than brand X because of bomb. So you immediately put them in a defensive mode. I mean, think about it. If your wife or spouse or a friend starts criticizing you, go, that was a stupid thing to do, human nature, we're going to defend it. So by saying, hey, I've heard great things about them, tell me what you like about them. First of all, you're rewarding them. They're going to feel more comfortable with you, right? And then, they're going to start liking you because, as you know, Joe, the first thing with sales is you got to establish a rapport. But this is a rapport about something that has to do with them. And what I would tell the youngsters out there is don't be afraid to, if the guy says we absolutely love them, and you just go, hey, look, here's the second part. Who's your backup? Who's your number two? Could I play for your number two? Could I be your backup vendor? And they go, backup vendor? Why do we need a backup vendor? This is where you go, well, look, I know this is a great company, but even great companies, sometimes people go on strike or they have problems or whatever, or you can't get something in the middle of the night. And I can tell you one of the things about our company is if you have a problem, I don't handle that brand, but my brand, we can get it for you. We can knock it out. And then they'll go, well, that makes sense. Yeah, you could be my number 2 vendor. And then you say, this is the Joe Chandler special, I think. You say, well, cool. Well, listen, if we're going to be your backup variable frequency drive, then let's get one in. Let's get one, order one. I'll come in and do the training for the guys and so on and so forth. Well, wait a minute. I told you we love ABB. They're great. I said, no, I understand that. But if you all of a sudden can't get a drive and you have a catastrophe, do you really want your guys trying to figure out a new drive in the middle of the night? Let's do that. And then, hey, here's your worst case scenario, right? I'm just using ABB and Honeywell, for example, because I've done this before. Your worst case example, you bring your ABB rep in and he sees your Honeywell drive sitting in your storage room, and maybe you're going to get better pricing now. Maybe it won't take you so much for granted. So you can't lose here, right?
That's actually good. I will use that. It's funny. I always tell people what my thing is give me a chance. If you give me a chance to service you and it doesn't work out, that's not your problem. That's my problem. I didn't do enough for you. When I'm given that opportunity, more times than not, somebody's going to say, we see a difference here. There is something that you guys do as a company, you do as my sales guy, your inside guy does, that really separates you from what I've been used to, because you don't know what you don't know, right? You don't know what you don't have because you think everybody's the same until.
People love to buy, but they do not like to be sold anything. Nobody goes, oh man, I went and this guy or girl sold me something. Right? We don't brag about that. We like to brag about buying. So when I would go in, for example, to try and cold call somebody, they go, well, he doesn't talk to salespeople. I said, well, neither do I. I'm not a salesperson. I help people buy stuff, but I'm not a salesperson. I don't blame him, right, or her, right? So I mean, but it is a subtle distinction. It sounds like, Joe, you do it naturally. It really is about how can I be of service? Let me earn your business. It seems like you just naturally do that.
Yeah, and I don't think, some of that obviously comes over time, right? You get comfortable being in your own skin and in those environments where you've seen different ways people approach it. You've had those very hard people who won't buy into anything, and they're combating you, and you're like, this is going to be a long day. But in general, people don't like to change, right? So they're very uncomfortable with something new. Which there's a book over my shoulder called The Challenger Sale, and that's one of very few sales books that I ever recommend reading. So many people default to, well, my relationship guy. That's how you build sales. Sales is all about relationships, and one of my isms, it's not about relationships. It's about the value you bring to a relationship, right, Eric? You and I have a good relationship, but if I wanted to come sell you something, there'd better be value behind it. Otherwise, you're going to go, Joe, this is cool, but I already do that, right? I don't need your stuff. I got my own stuff. So,
right.
The Challenger Sale talks about that idea of your best sales guys are going to be the guys that will actually push the customers even when it's uncomfortable for both. It's not just taking that transaction and going, I am satisfied with what you gave me. Last year and this year and the last few years, I've had all these LED lighting sales. LED lighting. What am I? Literally fixtures, light bulbs. In the millions of dollars. And why? Well, you're already in the building and you're staring at something else. It's on, off, or it modulates, which is what a valve does or an actuator does, right? It's on, off, or it modulates. So what's the difference in a light bulb? But you're there and they trust you. So ask the question, hey, what's going on with these lights? I'm going to control them anyway.
Yeah. Well, Joe, I say you've got people that build relationships, like you mentioned, the Challenger Sale and their different sort of role models. I say that a sale doesn't really happen until somebody says no or I'm not interested. Okay? That's when guys like you and me go to work. It's not that we push them or whatever, but we do ask that next question. The 3 most powerful words that I've ever used, there are more than 3 actually now, is when somebody says, I'm not really interested or whatever, or we're really happy with somebody else. I say, I'm just curious, what would have to happen for you to make a change and feel good about it? Because if you think about what we really do, you've done it all through this interview. It's about the questions you ask. People are like warp speed Google machines. You ask somebody not to think of a blue elephant, they have to think of a blue elephant to not think of a blue elephant. But I would say that, and I'll throw this out to you, try it and see what you think, but next time you're under objection, what would have to happen for you to try one of these and feel good about it. You got to add the good part about it. So that's one. But, if you think about what we really do and what people ask, well, what do you do? I help people make good decisions. That's my job. My reputation is more important than any sale that I could make to anybody. I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm here to help you buy if it makes sense for you. But to do that, we have to be honest with each other, right? And I'm going to ask you questions so we can discover whether it makes sense or not. And if it's not going to be a good decision for you, hey, let's shake hands and I'll go down the road. But at the end of this presentation, I'm going to ask you if it makes sense. If it makes sense, I'm going to ask you to do something about it. I want a yes or no. To me, a yes and no are equal. Because if they say, no, it absolutely doesn't work for me, then that's cool. I can go look someplace else. What I don't want to have happen is, well, send me, if you're not interested, I don't want to be wasting your time and my time. Do you feel that way, or do you have a different philosophy?
Yeah, some of that. I mean, it's funny. My thing with sales, I always say is for me, especially the way that we operate, because building automation is not or shouldn't be transactional, right? Don't treat that as transactional. It's not, I got to sell you a car and I may never see you again. That's a transaction that happens once. So I tell people the sale happens at the time in which the customer decides, I will give you a chance to start using you. My biggest customers, Brody's biggest customers date back 10 or 12 years, but it was the moment in which they decided they were buying from somebody, right? They're not a brand new company, never existed. We just weren't their primary. But the moment that they said, I'll give you a chance, that's when the sale started happening.
Yes.
Transactions have happened all that time since, and the ability to introduce the next technology, way to go to market, those things are the additional selling that goes along the way. But look, if somebody's doing Schneider building automation, right, which we have, and they're buying directly from Schneider, well, the chances of you switching that over is slim. But that's not the only thing they buy, right? They still need these other things.
True or false? Salespeople are born, not made.
I think that they are made, but but there is some natural talent to that ceiling. I think that there is a difference between the level at which somebody can achieve, and that requires making of somebody. They have a natural ceiling that somebody has to, or themselves have to try to figure out where that is.
My guess is you probably read every sales book you can get your hands on. You talk to people that are good at sales. You study people that are good at sales. I mean, to me, it's a craft, right? I mean, it's an absolute craft. And as you know, it can get down to the words you use. And I think to be successful in the sales game, you have to be a lifelong student of sales and of human nature and of your products. And you have to have tremendous integrity. Because, I've studied with hypnotists and stuff like this, and, they could get you to do anything, but if you don't have integrity, people sense that, and you might get a sale once, but that's all you're going to get.
Oh, yeah.
We're playing the long game, right?
Like I said, it's not about transactions. Transactional sales get you so far, but
I would say that persistence is the number one thing, and having integrity and wanting to help people. I think if you are persistent, you have integrity, you're trying to help them, you will eventually win. I think if you understand some basic sales techniques and how to frame things like, you're talking about, it just speeds the process up. But if you don't have that other thing about I'm genuinely trying to help you and people can't sense that, you might get in the door, but you're not staying very long. So outside of the Challenger sales, other sales books you might recommend for our audience?
Good to Great is another very good book. And my favorite right now is the 3-Minute Rule, which I have literally handed that book to people, recommended it. And the 3-Minute Rule is basically how do you sell the best parts of it, whatever it is, so you can keep an audience engaged.
Well, listen, how do people find you? BrodyPrecision.com, ask for the Godfather of sales up there, or how does that work?
No, I mean, the way that we're broken down with, if somebody wants to talk sales and the owner of our company doesn't mind me spending time doing that day or night, then you can reach out to Brody. I got, obviously I have an email, which is jchandler@brodyprecision.com.
Oh, can we do this again? I would love, like I said, I've made a commitment to my audience not to go too long on these interviews, but can we do another interview maybe in a month or so?
Sure.
And, that's Joe Chandler from Brody Precision. Definitely check him out. Joe, thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Eric.
All right, there you have it. That's another week on Control Talk Now, the Smart Buildings videocast and podcast. A very, very special thanks to Joe Chandler from Brody Precision. Great job, Joe. So we'll see you next week. Until then, remember, be bold, stay in control, stay relevant. And as Hunter Thompson used to say, buy the ticket, take the ride.
shoveling.